I think Tyrann Mathieu summed up that Saints loss perfectly in his post-game interview. It hurts to lose like that a lot more than it hurts to lose by 30. Because when you lose by 30, you never really have control of the game. But a loss like this, when the Saints had control the majority of the time, in the words of Tyrann Mathieu, it's frustrating, it's humbling, but that's why people love NFL football. It was an emotional roller coaster of a weekend, to say the least, for Saints fans. Jimmy Graham catches his first touchdown in a Saints uniform in a very long time. We'll have an update for you today regarding Derek Carr's shoulder injury. The breakdown completely for the third week in a row of the offensive line, along with the fourth quarter breakdown of that Saints defense. All this and more on today's episode of Grunt Talk Saints. Let's go.
These little demons living underneath my bed creeping. Know the real monster lives above them all sleeping. That subtle breathing in your closet every single evening. Thought you never see me again. Looks can be deceiving. When they hear the sound of the drum, they'll be saying, oh Lord, here they come. Yeah, here we come.
Find a way, man, to pull through. So, losses like this hurt worse than when you get beat by 30, right? Because, when you get beat by 30, you're never in control of the game, right? When you lose a close game like that, a game that you feel like you were in control of for the most part, it's frustrating, it's humbling, but that's why people love the NFL, right? We line it back up in 7 days. We'll be back at home in front of our fans, in front of divisional foe. So we'll have our opportunity to kind of, get this bad taste out of our mouth. But, you never want to drop games like this, especially early in the season, especially against a good team that's in your conference, because we know how close it gets, towards the end of the year.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Grunt, and welcome to today's episode of Grunt Talk Saints. And look, what a game to cover this past weekend. The Packers were able to will their way back as the third team ever to be able to accomplish a win after combating a completely shutout game through three quarters. 17-0 was the score heading into the fourth, and the Packers were able to will their way back, score a touchdown late, go for two. Saints get the ball back. Jameis Winston, that offense drive down to right where the Saints need to be, and that close to the red zone within field goal range. Rookie Saints kicker Blake Grupe misses a 46-yarder that would have put the Saints up 2 with about a minute left, and the Saints lose out after being ahead 17-0. They exit Lambeau with an L, 18-17. Where do we even start? I will say that there was a lot of momentum early, right? Jimmy Graham is found in the end zone. It's a huge feel-good moment, not just for the Saints, right? I mean, in the regular season, I have to go back and look the last time Jimmy Graham caught a touchdown for the Saints in the end zone. I mean, it's been a long time, right? It's also been a while since he's been on the Packers, and he's in Lambeau Field. He's obviously still loved there, and he's very revered in Green Bay, just like he's very revered in New Orleans. It's a very good momentum heavy out the gate. Jimmy Graham scores, but one thing that's important to remember is that's also when I think the Saints started to slow down, was following that. 3 weeks in a row, there still hasn't been much momentum with the Saints offense. Yeah, when Jameis came in late in the game, they switched to a very conservative game plan on both sides of the ball that definitely attributed to that loss. Jameis Winston wasn't able to see the field correctly, I think, in different. He had some opportunities to make a few throws that he didn't make those. I mean, it was a complete offensive shutdown, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I feel like it's been kind of the same story in the red zone. It's something that's important to remember, that there was only 10 points put up on Sunday against the Packers from the Saints offense. 7 came from a punt return, and that field goal should have been a touchdown. But once again, very clearly missing Calvin Kamara in that offense. They go to a very pass-heavy scheme once they get inside the 10 or 15, for whatever reason, and that's why they had to settle. Even then, they had an opportunity to win this game. Jameis Winston brings the offense down in the Saints' final offensive drive of the game, gets them right inside, right in time for a 46-yard field goal to take the lead with about a minute left. Score would have been 20-18 with about a minute and 3 seconds left, I believe. Blake Grupe, rookie Saints kicker who has been 7 for 7 through 3 weeks, misses his first kick of the season. Unfortunately, it's what would put the Saints ahead late in the game. Jordan Love and the Packers take the ball back, kneel it out, game Over. But I'll reiterate, he was 7 for 7 heading into this kick. The hold was good, the snap was good, the hold was good, the kick was no good. I understand. But when you look at the position on the field, it wasn't like it was great field position for the field goal. I mean, it was very left, and that's where the kick went, right? But it shouldn't have came down to that. Blake Grupe, I had no quarrels with him. He should have nailed that. It's a 46-yarder. But for people saying, well, maybe we should have kept Will Lutz missed the game-winning field goal in week 1 and an extra point. I think he's missed like 2 or 3 extra points, I believe, so far this season. And it's week 3. So I still think Blake Grupe was the right choice. He was 7 for 7 heading into this kick. It shouldn't have came down to it. Yes, he missed it, but then he took accountability. He said it best. He said what I feel like any kicker who's decent, who could take responsibility for the actions, right? That's missed a big kick. So the same thing they all say. One day you're a hero, the next day you're a villain. That's what they call the position of kicker, like the most stressful position, right? One of the most stressful positions in sports because of the sheer pressure tied to it. And he mentioned, you put together a good preseason. He just has to be better. I got no quarrels with you, Blake Grupe, but let's make the next one. But it should have came down to that. It just shouldn't have. You had a 17-point lead. It goes on both sides of the ball. You look at the defense that gave up 18 points straight. Yeah, they balled. They were tired. I understand. They didn't have a lot of time in between each drive. But still, it's football. You get out there, you put your pads on, and you play ball, right? They failed to hold the Packers back. They scored 18 in a row in their face in a very short amount of time. Offense, same thing. That could go back to play calling as well on the defensive side of the ball. I've been a big fan of Joe Woods through 3 weeks. It's a great defense. But I think they did come out in a very uncharacteristic, right, Saints type of defense. They came out very soft, super soft zone coverage late when they shouldn't have. And they only started to call real aggressive, true play making offensive calls whenever they had to, right? The last 2 drives is when they really started letting Jameis kind of make some throws. So it's kind of a total team loss, but if we want to bring it back to one thing, it could be the common denominator, and that's that offensive line. Always that offensive line, because look, even Trevor Penning didn't look awful today. Today it was the rest. I think Ramczyk was probably the worst player on the offensive line today. Rashawn Gary ate him up every other play, I swear to God. And we all know, like, Ramczyk's abilities, right? Like, we know how good Ramczyk is. Like, it's not that we don't understand that he's a good tackle. I'm not saying he's not a good right tackle. He's especially a phenomenal run blocker, right? Pass blocking's never been his strong suit, but he can hold his own. He did not hold his own against Rashawn Gary. And it seems like there's a different fragmentation of this offensive line that's doing the worst every week. I think week 1, it was obviously Trevor Penning. Week 2, I think Trevor Penning actually made a few good blocks, especially for Tony Jones there late in the game once Jamal Williams exited. Week 3, he looks to be improved a little bit as well. Like, I mean, I'm really not trying to put Trevor Penning on a pedestal. I'm just saying it's not all Penning. And that was the thing that I heard a lot in these comment sections everywhere, that it was a Penning problem, right? It wasn't an offensive line, it was a Penning problem. Well, then now I think this week kind of puts that argument to rest. The whole line looked bad. Cesar Ruiz left early in the game due to concussion protocol. So we had 2 starting offensive linemen out at this point. So that also attributes to it. But Ramczyk should be able to hold his own. Rashawn Gary's a phenomenal outside speed rusher, a great linebacker. But Ramczyk was getting ate up for lunch. And I don't know if it goes back to coaching. I know we brought in Jari Evans as we lost Zach Strief. He went over to coach the offensive line, of course, with Sean Payton over in Denver. But we brought in Jari Evans, and I thought Jari Evans would be very comparable to Zach Strief in terms of coaching. I like Zach Strief a lot. I still think that I think the offensive line's been pretty inconsistent the last 4 years or so, maybe even longer. And I think a lot of that I did attribute to Zach Strief a little bit. Maybe that could have been it. Maybe a fresh face of coaching could help bring some more consistency, especially a guy like Jari Evans, who's phenomenal, right? That could be it. Maybe he's not doing a great job, or it could be Marrone, right? Brought in Doug Marrone this offseason to help coach the offensive line. Could that be it? I know it has to be something. Through 3 weeks, they look like they're misorganized. They look frustrated, and they're getting beat early and often. And that's not the type of offense we're going to win with, right? Dennis Allen loves an in the trenches type of offense. Blocking's in the trenches. So as long as that's going to be a friction point, the Saints aren't going to sniff 20 points. They're just not. I don't care who's playing quarterback. I mean, I know stats can be misleading, but still, stats, right? Stats are stats, like they're on paper. And if you look at the quarterback stats, like I got them right here. So, like, if you look at the quarterback stats, right? Like Derek Carr was 13 for 18 for 103 yards and a score, right? He did a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. But don't get me wrong, there's a couple passes he forced. I think that's not uncommon knowledge. In the red zone, he's forced a few that maybe could have gotten away from him. Maybe a little bit too high, 50-50 balls. Some passes that might be in too tight of coverage. Makes me nervous, right? I told y'all, everybody used to pucker up when Winston took the snap. I understand that was the whole argument. Well, look, I pucker up whenever Derek Carr takes the snap in the red zone. I feel like I've been saying it every week. And until he changes my mind, I'm going to keep saying it. But he was 13 for 18, 103 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty efficient quarterback play. Then Jameis Winston comes in, but he was 10 for 16 for 101 yards. And like I said, he got the team in a position to kick a game leading, not winning. A lot of time left. The way the defense was playing, they may have allowed Jordan Love to drive down and kick the game-winning field goal anyway. But we'll never know, right? But he got him down there, right? Like the quarterback was at least able to get him down when it mattered, and then they missed the field goal. So, it's quarterback play. Yes, it's pretty clear. We don't have playmakers with Jameis. Well, he's a playmaker, right? But it can go one way or the other. But we don't have, I'm not convinced on either one. I don't think most people are convinced on either one. But the offensive line also isn't really helping make the case. We're not picking the offensive line. I do want to go over a few positive things. I'm proud of Tony Jones Jr. He came in, Tony Jones was averaging 3.9 yards a carry. We had Kendre Miller, rookie out of TCU, looked phenomenal. 9 rushes for 34 yards and 3.8 yards a carry. I didn't think he'd see 5 touches. I didn't think Kendra'd see 5 touches. He comes in, averages damn near 4 yards a carry for 34 yards. I can't complain with that. With that offensive line, like I said, they're not bad against the run. It's the pass blocking that's real bad, right? But against, there's potential there when it comes to the run game. They played the Packers, who of course give up 166 rushing yards a game. They're 20. I guess at this point, how many they give up? 3, 6. They're probably up there now. They're probably like 20th maybe against the rush. So it's not like we played a very super impressive run defense, but still, you got to look at it like Tony Jones is a practice squad body. He came in and put up some numbers 2 weeks in a row. Taysom Hill struggled. He averaged still 3 yards a carry, 4 rushes for 12 yards. Once again, Taysom is the Saints are undefeated whenever Taysom gets at least 9 carries. So I look at that and I'm like, why does he just have 4? I don't understand. I would almost just force 9 carries just to break it, just to see what happens at this point. But once again, he has 4 carries. But Chris Olave, another phenomenal catch by Chris Olave. I don't know if y'all saw it, but we're going to watch it again.
Carr, near side.
Wow.
Olave, what a catch.
Working on the rookie, Carrington Valentine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's in bounds.
He has made a couple of spectacular catches so far this season.
That one against the Panthers was phenomenal. Had the defensive back draped all over him, and then another.
But he finishes, of course, with his normal 8 receptions, right? 104 yards. And then Michael Thomas, 6 receptions for 50 yards. And ladies and gentlemen, it's week 3, and Michael Thomas is still on the roster.
Praise God.
Knock on wood. But he's still here, baby. He's still healthy, and he's still making aggressive plays through 3 weeks. So, look, there's faith in that offense. I'm looking for Juwan Johnson still to step up. Juwan Johnson's finished with 2 receptions for 12 yards against the Packers. Another quiet week for Juwan Johnson. And look, I don't think I'm wrong yet. It's still early in the season, and I called for it. I said Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed are going to connect all year. That's going to be a huge dynamic duo that people are discounting. So far, it's been true. But I also said Juwan Johnson in the red zone, right, will be a huge end zone target for Derek Carr. We haven't seen that. I think he targeted him once so far. I have to go back and look, and it was an overthrow and a coverage, right? I'll have to go back and look. But he hasn't really looked his way. So I think Juwan Johnson is still bound for a breakout year. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. I don't know if they're having him out there just block a lot, which could be it. Given the offensive line situation, we're having to come out in 2 tight end sets with Tony Jones out there blocking just to get the quarterback 5 seconds to throw the ball. But just to let routes develop. And to allow the quarterback to deliver a clean pass. Sorry, pick on the offensive line again. But I still think, in terms of optimism for this offense, Michael Thomas and Chris Olave are still balling. We don't have a wide receiver problem. We had all these problems last year, but we also had a wide receiver problem. We don't have that. We also last year had a running the ball problem. Based on these numbers, we don't have that. We're just not doing it. We're just not running the ball. We're not really having problems running the ball. We're just choosing to not do it. So I think when we have Alvin Kamara come back, hopefully that can change. And whatever quarterback we have back there, at least he'll have a quick, easy check down route if that pocket closes within a second and a half like it has been. So in terms of optimism, we got receivers that are balling. We don't have a running problem. I think we have a quarterback in Derek Carr and even Jameis Winston that have given time can win us games. I mean, Jameis is what, 10-4 as a starter or 10-5 now as a starter. He's won us games, right? Derek Carr is now 2-1 in games that he started for the Saints. So both quarterbacks showing they can win. Defense showing they can put the team in a position to win. The quarterback and that offense just has to take it over the finish line. There's a lot of optimism heading to the rest of the season. The Saints are still 2-1. The Buccaneers are coming off a loss in primetime against the Eagles, a tough loss. The Falcons lose this past weekend to a very impressive Detroit Lions team. So whenever you look at the division, it's still in good shape. And the Saints are now heading back home, to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are coming off a loss of their own, right? And we have Kamara back. So there's still a lot of potential for the rest of the season. It's just going to be super, super, super paramount that this offense can take its head out of its ass. Because until that happens, it's going to be a long year. Because I think it's very doable to win the division, right? I think it's doable, but this division's scrapping. I mean, the Falcons defense is balling. You got Calais Campbell out there. You got Jesse Bates making some clean plays, right? Desmond Ritter taking care of the football. Bijan Robinson is showing that he is worth the hype, right? So, like, the Falcons look pretty good. Panthers not so much. And the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield seems to be having, like, extremely strong chemistry with Mike Evans. And I know this is against, like, I mean, I'm probably got to, like, repent, but I got Mike Evans on my fantasy team. So, I mean, whenever you see that, right, like, the division's balling, right? But the division's still easily winnable. The Saints can find themselves 3-1 and number one in the division as early as next week. But it's about what happens to whoever wins that division, right? Once they get into the playoffs, I think unless all these teams clean up one key thing, it'll be a first-round exit. And I think the Saints have a chance to win this division, but their one thing is that O-line. That's for the defense, right? I mean, Pete Werner coming through with 7 tackles. I think Alontae Taylor had about 5 tackles. Had a great week. Alontae Taylor looks great. Paulson Adebo was also out. Marcus May was out. Jordan Howden, let me see how he did. I think Jordan Howden finished with, he had a tackle, three assists. I think he had a deflection. He was picked apart, though. I mean, at the end of the game, Jordan Love was kind of dissecting that secondary. And I don't blame it on Tyrann Mathieu at all. I think Tyrann Mathieu had a solid game. What did he finish with? He finished with 2 tackles. Yeah, 2 tackles and an assist. I know I was picking on him a little bit. I think Alontae had a sack as well, right? Yeah, Alontae had his first sack as well. So I'm not trying to pick on Tyrann Mathieu at all. I think he was trying to cover a lot of ground, especially late in the game. And I just think they picked apart that secondary. But it's missed. You have Jordan Howden in there for Marcus May. Marcus May has had a very vibrant role the last 2 weeks. Interception week 1, 6 solos last week against the Panthers, or prime time week 2 against the Panthers, excuse me. So he's a big part of that defense through 3 weeks. It's been a top 4 defense. I don't know what they're ranked now at this point. But his absence was very much noticed. Even Adebo's was, because he had a pretty good game last week as well when he got the interception. So we'll see. Well, there's still zero excuse to the defensive play in the second half, right? I mean, they were giving up like 240-something yards, I think, offensively heading into this game against the Packers. And then they give up almost 350 offensive yards, so almost 100 yards over the average that the Saints defense has given up, was given up to the Packers this week. And what really sucks is I feel like 60 to 70% of those yards were like thrown in the last quarter and a half of the contest, which stings even more. The last thing I want to update you guys on is the Derek Carr injury. I'm not sure. I know the news has been everywhere, right? If you've been following Twitter, I know I've been trying to stay updated on the Derek Carr information, and there's been info from all different sides. I've been trying to stick to what Nick Underhill's been saying, right? And, he reported at first that it didn't look good. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, well, we'll see. And now they're coming out saying, and the latest information is that Derek Carr currently has an AC sprain in his shoulder, and he is expected to be week to week. I think his availability is going to depend on the swelling and his mobility, as well as his comfortability throwing the football. But it's week to week. They're not placing him on IR, and they have not even officially ruled him out yet for this upcoming game against the Bucs. I personally would. I think you go ahead and throw Jameis in there. I mean, he's going to be playing the Bucs. So he'll have some fire. He's going to probably want some revenge from last year. I mean, the year before last was the injury game when they took him out. Last year was an ugly game because he was playing with he was playing with literal spinal fractures in that one. I mean, you can hate him all you want. Go look at that one. Go look at that game against the Bucs and go look at the type of injuries they suited him up playing with. And given that, I don't want to see Derek Carr hurt himself the way I watched Jameis Winston injure himself last year. So I think on the coaching staff, you let Jameis Winston get in here, you let him play one, and even if you drop it, you're still 2-2, and you have Derek Carr healthy at that point, right? But I think Jameis can pull it out, and we can still end here 3-1 and give Derek Carr a week of rest. But look, I don't want to spend too much time on this one. I mean, it's a tough loss. I think you could look at these numbers and dissect them 45 times. It doesn't matter. I think the consensus will be the same. There was never really any offensive structure there outside of the touchdown to Jimmy Graham in the first touchdown of the game, right? Outside of that, though, there was still, outside of flashes, there was still inconsistent offensive play, even with Derek Carr in there. But the team at least had a lot of momentum heading into half, 17-0, Rashid having a huge punt return. They just blow it, man. They blow it. They blow it completely. The whole team just collapses in on itself. I'm ready to look forward to this Sunday's game. I'm ready to look forward to this Buccaneers matchup, this divisional contest that's going to really decide the momentum heading into this first half of the year. But for now, look, I'm your boy Grunt. Stay safe, be kind to one another, and as always, who dat, we dat, believe dat, and we will recover. We will rebuild, and we will be better. I can feel it. Let's go.